Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. My name is Dawn, and sadly, I do not have my co host, Miss Dixie, with me today yet again. She is still on hiatus away from the podcast while she is attending to some family business out of state. We wish her well, send her your love and good wishes. I'm sending her mine, and hopefully, we will have her back soon. But until then, you get me, kids. Yes, I'm doing these exercises and reporting back to you. So if you're new to the podcast, let me just tell you a little bit about the Soul Goals and why it was formed. The Soul Goals podcast and the movement, the Soul Goals, is a way for us to dive into what it is that we can be as humans, as individuals, and how to find the best versions of ourselves, how to show others that we are there to support, how to connect with other people, and ultimately knowing that as souls in this world, we are made and wired for connection with others. Year number one, if you'll recall, and if you haven't, I'd love for you to go back and listen to some of those stories, were interviews of folks that shared some really, really valuable and vulnerable information with us about things that they have gone through in an effort for us to connect more deeply with them for our own healing, as well as their continued healing. And then year two is taking it another step further where we personally can work on ourselves to, again, like I always say, be the best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be. And what that means for a lot of us is doing internal self-reflection work. And that is what my good friend Dixie and I have been taking on for the 52 weeks of the year. We just came back from vacation and we're ready to hit it again. And this week's is a good one. I loved this week's. It's number 39 in 52 weeks, and it is called It's a Flex. Ooh, flex. So you can see those flexing those muscles. If you couldn't guess what the name means, it means, yeah, it's working out. Now, we have explored exercise and physical movement in past episodes for this year, but different is this because what this week's challenge, or rather, I like to say opportunity, right? We're just going to reframe the words to make it sound better. So it's a little easier for us to do. This week's opportunity was for us to get some kind of form of physical movement every day. That's 7 days. So no days off. Now, I'm not talking running a marathon every day. I'm talking maybe one day it's a 30-minute workout. Maybe the next day it's 15 minutes of walking your dog. Maybe the next day it's 10 minutes of stretching or doing some kind of yoga movements on the living room floor while you're watching TV. Maybe the next day it is running a half marathon. Who knows? But ideally, what it is committing to doing something physically every day of this week. And my call to action for you is to try to make this happen. Shoot for a 7-day period. And I want you to see how you feel at the end of it, right? And how all sorts of things are affecting you when you are done with it. Because as a former trainer, I'm really excited about this episode because I get to fill you in on some fun things that I went through with clients over a 25-year career that I had, personal training, people face to face, as well as small groups and large group instruction. And I'm just here to tell you, movement changes so much. When we move the body, we move the energy in our soul. And that may sound woo woo, but I'm going to let it sound woo woo. When we move our bodies, we move our souls. And a lot of times, the things that we are holding on to tend to shift. We get a little bit different mindset on situations, our perspective changes, and we just feel better about things. I'm going to give you the scientific proof behind exercise and the reasons for it in just a little bit, but I'm going to share a little bit about what it is that I did this week as a former CrossFit instructor, current CrossFit instructor yet. I did a good amount of CrossFit workouts for this week. One day was a 10-minute workout, right? Because us CrossFitters like to do intensity all out, no holds barred. And then the next day was a 30-minute, more of a what we call a chipper. So it's just an ongoing movement where we're getting an elevated heart rate and we're doing repetitive motions for a good solid 25 to 30 minutes. One day I just basically lifted weights. I just went out to my garage and said, I don't care what it is that I'm doing. I'm going to do every muscle group. I'm going to do it to fatigue. I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 to 15 reps. Easy speasy. Took me maybe 15, 20 minutes. I didn't really do a lot of heavy work on it, but it moved, right? And then there was one day where I hadn't done anything. It had been a huge work day. I had been sitting on my tush recording all day long, and I knew I needed something, but I was really, really tired. And I knew the double edged sword, when you're tired, that's usually when you need the movement the most. So if you can get it started, that's the benefit. I walked out to my garage and jumped on my treadmill and just walked at an easy pace, 20 minutes. It was just enough to boost my mood, right? To boost my physicality in terms of not feeling so sluggish and just exhausted. And I was still able to sleep because I wasn't being intense in my workout. A lot of times when we work out later at night, it can tend to affect our sleep mode. But it depends on your schedule too. I've always told my clients, if you can't find another time to exercise in the day and it's 8 or 9 o'clock at night, then you know what? You have to make that, you have to make that your preference. You have to make that your specific goal that you're going to do this, and you're just going to make it work in your schedule one way or another, because that movement is so vital for our lives, for our brains. And specifically for me, I'm going to tell you, it makes me feel better mentally and emotionally. And I think those are two of the biggest things for me. The physicality stuff, I know we have all heard it. Like, we have all heard we exercise to lose weight. We exercise to feel better physically for our digestion. We exercise to sleep better at night. We exercise to lower our blood pressure. We exercise to lower all of the precursors that we may be having for towards pre-diabetic and high cholesterol as we age and later in life. We exercise to actually decrease overall inflammation in our body. But at the end of the day, I want to tell you that 99.9% of my clients over my 25-year career will tell you that the biggest component for their exercise that they said was the most beneficial, they would mark down on any given day of the week, is the mental and emotional clearing that movement did for them. It made them a lot easier to be around. My family can attest to that. I'm a lot easier to be around when I feel like I've moved some energy through my body and I've had some exercise. Like I said, it can be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It does not have to be an extensive situation. And then on those days when I do have more time, maybe I carve out some more time. It depends on my schedule, and I do a little bit more. But the idea is to find what works for you in your day. So for me, my husband has this funny gag with me about this. I tend to write down what I'm going to do for my workout, and then I tend to procrastinate and I don't get it started. I get into my work day, I go into my recording studio and I start doing my narration or my voiceover work. And then I come out and it's lunchtime and I change the laundry over, maybe do some dishes while I'm cooking my food. And I'm like, I should have worked out this morning, but I didn't. And I had everything set up to do it. So it is something that we all do. And I know a lot of times people say, yeah, but you're a trainer. You've been around it for a long time. It's easier for you to do that. And I'm here to tell you truthfully, where the rubber meets the road, it's not always easy to make that choice, but I can confidently tell you that it is a choice. And we make those choices and we find out what makes us tick inside to be able to make those choices better and more accessible for us. That's where we find success. And that's kind of across the board. We can go down that road another day. But if we're talking about physical movement, for me, what I had to do for this week to make sure that I got 7 days of work in was I had to write it down on my calendar. I actually wrote it down on my calendar. So I was like, day one, all right, 7 a.m., I'm putting my tennis shoes on. I'm going out and I'm walking on the treadmill. That's it. And I made an appointment with myself on my calendar. For me, in my brain, if I see that, yeah, it's on my to-do. It's an appointment that I'm going to keep. Just a consideration, something to think about. Again, it changed from day to day. Sometimes it was 7 in the morning. Sometimes it was 7 o'clock at night. It really depended upon my schedule. And that's, again, the thing that I think we all have to take into account is what it is that we're dealing with in our life. Are we in a busy season? Are we dealing with a lot of emotional stress? Are we dealing with a lot of physical stress? And here's the thing, I know it's really difficult when we feel like our calendars are jam-packed with life as it stands to say, "Oh my God, I have to fit something else in." But ideally, when you fit something else in, like exercise, when you can write it down and carve out, again, just a very small piece of time, it will end your day or end your week looking back and going, you know what? I did that. I did something good for myself. I feel the difference. I feel the benefits of it. It, like I said, it's still hard for me to do. My former clients exercising on their own was always a big deal. Their biggest part to coming to me was accountability, right? I have a good friend that I will text periodically and say, how's your workout going? And she'll do the same for me. And it usually synchronistically happens just out of the blue when we both really need it to. So maybe think about an accountability friend. Maybe think about a coworker that you're going to go walk with at lunch. Maybe think about summertime. You have a child home from college and saying, hey, hold me accountable. Let's exercise together, or let's go to a yoga class together, or a Pilates class together, or let's Google up YouTube and let's find something that we can do easy in our home with our phone in front of us. Because I think another thing is people have an issue with spending money on stuff like that. And spending money on yourself in that capacity isn't always easy to carve out that space and um, that ability for a lot of us. So just know that it is accessible to find a workout that you can do without having to spend any money at all. Like I do that with YouTube a lot, just because too, I'm looking for something fresh and looking for something different. If I've been really bored with the same thing that I've been doing, and I love CrossFit, but sometimes CrossFit got to go. Sometimes I got to do something different to stimulate my brain and to make my body guess, if you will. So it's not used to the same stimulus. Our bodies do get used to the same workouts. That's where this element of we have to change up our workout periodically. It's called periodization. It's finding different pieces of the year. And for me, I used to do it with training each of my clients. We would go on a quarterly system. So one quarter, we're going to focus on flexibility and endurance. So that kind of workout looks different. The next quarter, we're going to focus on strength. So we're going to do a little bit of cardiovascular exercise, but we're also going to then shift our focus into specifically weight training, barbell training, dumbbell trainings, more so than we did in the last quarter. Keeps it fresh. Quarter number 3, it could just be, it's really busy. It could be the holidays. We could be moving children from point A to point B or moving across the country with our families. So what is it that we can do? Well, that's just going to be accessibility exercises. That's movement, that's stretching. Maybe it's flexibility. And that's what we're focused on. Something that doesn't take a lot of time, but gives us the benefit we're looking for anyway. And all that to be said, I do want to go back and talk a little bit about the client thing that I had for 25 plus years. Loved being a personal trainer. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Still have a couple of folks that I see out of my garage from time to time. You know who you are. Shout out. But I will tell you that a lot of my clients over the course of the years hesitated to jump into the exercise because they did not feel that they deserved the benefits. And let me say that again. They got real and they would sit down and tell me, I don't feel like I deserve to be healthy. Now, I don't know where that mindset necessarily comes from because we are all different species and all different brain waves, and we're all different people. But here's the deal. I'm here to tell you, you do deserve to be healthy. You do deserve to be full. You do deserve to be kind to your body, kind to your brain, kind on every level. We all do. We all do, no matter what. So let's talk about why we don't do it, besides feeling like you don't deserve it. Lots of people say there's a lack of time. I just don't have time. Again, for me, what I did this week, because I'm a super busy person, I put it on my calendar. I literally wrote it down on my calendar. It's the only way I knew I was going to do it. That's an accountability thing for me. I have a good friend that says I have an accountability partner that texts me every morning and just texts me a check mark when they've exercised. It's easy, right? So if I know that I'm going to get that check mark and she's expecting a check mark back, I know I got to do something. And I don't want to lie about it because I just don't want to lie about it. I'm going to do this good. I need it. I need it. My accountability partner is relying on me. Low motivation. Hey, that's why I saw a lot of the different clients that I did. Their motivation to get moving was hard. So whether you pick up a buddy that says, and you say, let's do it together, whether you have a family member and you say, hey, instead of sitting on the couch tonight, we're going to go for a walk together. whether you have accessibility in your schedule and in your pocketbook where you can hire a trainer, whether you drove past an introductory yoga class for $10 for a week, you can come as much as you want to. Hey, there's places out there to find it. And the motivation comes when you connect with other people that are doing the same thing. In CrossFit, and this is going to be probably a hard sale for you if you're thinking about doing CrossFit. First of all, the community is amazing. But secondly, I think the thing that always resonated most with me is that misery loves company, right? We're all in a common goal from point A to point B, and we're all doing the same thing, whether it is in some kind of different capacity or not, depending on our fitness levels and depending on our ages and our injuries that we may be dealing with. We are all invested in doing the same work at the same time. So it's like-minded individuals. You get that in any workout class that you go to. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. So yeah, it's about connecting. Like I told you earlier, it's our soul goals. We are wired to connect. That's what helps motivation for sure. Another thing is, physical barriers. A lot of times people feel like I hurt too bad to do this. My knees, I've had multiple surgeries. I have a bad back. I can't move as well as I used to. And here's what I have to say about that. You may not be able to move as well as you used to, but you can still move because you got out of bed today. And that's usually the motivation that it takes. Let's put 2 feet on the floor. Let's stand up and let's go. I got it. I can do this. I can move. I don't have to do it on a huge extent. I can do a little bit and make it productive for me, for where I'm at. And every little bit gets better. Every little bit helps you get a little bit better each day. A lot of people also feel very insecure or self-conscious. People go into the gym. That's why I got a lot of my different personal training clients. They didn't know what to do when they went into the gym, right? I know, gosh, I know the first gym that I walked into, you look at all those machines and you think, how does this work? How am I going to ever be able to be on that machine and do it properly? I have no idea what that means. What is that pin for? What is that knob for? Right. So lacking knowledge and feeling insecure about being in a gym and in a place where you don't know anything. That's where I tell people, hey, come in, let's meet one-on-one and let's walk through it together. If you don't have that accessibility to you, that's where Google is a great, great thing. And so is YouTube. A wonderful thing for you to be able to say, let's check out, let me Google up, exercising for beginners, yoga for beginners, Pilates for beginners, and then do some of your deep dive on your own so that you know what some of those terms are. Maybe you find an exercise class online that you start doing at home. And when you start doing it at home, it gives you a little bit more confidence for when you're ready to go into a class with other people. And you know what you're talking about. You feel a little bit more lifted up and a little more confident about what those movements might be. It's really good. That's one of the best things that clients have told me along the years that have helped them. And also, I'm drinking out of this cup today, being present. So how does that fit in with exercise? Well, being present means being where you are, being where your feet are. So if you're having a low motivation day, what does that look like for you? Do you need to just stretch? Hey, that's movement. Do you need to get out and put your tennis shoes on and go for a mile run because it's the best thing to help your monkey mind process something? Yeah, that's being present. That's listening to what's happening to you in the present. And the definition of being present is to be focused on the moment at hand, to be engaged in what is going on now and not worrying about the future or focusing on the past. I think that's the most brilliant thing for me when I exercise is that I'm focused on the moment. I'm focused on the movement. I'm focused on my feet hitting the ground. I'm focusing on my breath. I'm not really thinking about the grocery list. I'm not thinking about picking a child up later on in the day. I'm not thinking about my work deadline. I'm giving myself the grace for X amount of minutes. Because remember, this is the best thing for me was I wrote it down on my calendar as an appointment. I know from this point to this point, this is the time that I have carved out to be present, being present, listening to my body, and knowing that I have the ability to do something really good for myself if I am just being present. So I talked a little bit ago earlier here about the scientific things outside of building muscle and strength and losing body fat and losing weight and improving your sleep and boosting your energy. I think those are all things that we all go, yeah, that's a given. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But what are some of the scientific things I'm going to give you, just in case you're struggling today, that physical exercise helps with? Brain boosting mood, right? It's the endorphins, dopamine and serotonin. That's what your body releases when you exercise. And I'm going to read it here. Exercise triggers the release of endorphins, natural painkillers, by the way. It's dopamine and serotonin, like I just told you. It improves your mood and reduces the feelings of depression and anxiety. Boy, that's a win-win right there. Also, it lowers stress and it lowers your cortisol levels, which the cortisol is the stress hormone that is present in all of us that gets activated, boom, with many different things that happen during our day, whether we got cut off in traffic, whether we've had a phone call with some frustrating news, whether we've had a really hard day at work, whether we just had a disagreement with someone we care deeply about. Those cortisol levels, the stress hormone goes whoop up through the ceiling. Lowering them helps us to be able to see life differently, to be able to deal with them in an adult, in a mature way that helps us be respectful to anyone around us. But more than that, respect the person that we are. Also, improves your brain function, guys. This is a biggie that I don't think gets enough credit. Neuroplasticity. This exercise increases levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is BDNF. What that basically does is it helps neurons grow and improves our memory and our learning. It does that by increasing the blood flow. So we're basically not just working out our biceps when we're doing a bicep curl, we're working the neurons that help with your brain function overall in a roundabout way. Also, increasing that blood flow gives you better circulation through the whole body, delivering oxygen and vital nutrients to the brain. And the brain is so, so important. Like I said, I don't think we give it enough credit where exercise is concerned. I think we think about the physical element in terms of what we look like rather than those exterior things that happen along the way. Also, prevention here too. Regular physical activity is linked to lower risks of dementia and cognitive decline. I'm here to tell you that in the last 20 years, the incidence of dementia and cognitive disabilities and illnesses has risen substantially. What is it that we can do to help stave that off? Physical movement. That's one of the biggies. One of the biggies. Also, as you would know, heart circulatory system strengthens your heart, again, improves your blood flow, regulates your blood sugar. That's another really big thing. It's that insulin sensitivity. And as we age, a lot of times you see that a lot of people end up having glucose related issues. Controlling that blood glucose level, reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes that we may get later on in life. That exercise helps so much with the insulin sensitivity and the insulin release and how that balances in our body. Again, I'm going to tell you about this fighting inflammation. There are, again, so many different chronic diseases that have popped up rather over the course of the last 20-ish years now. It's it's very prevalent. Yeah, as we all know, it's inflammation. It's a big deal that helps boost those diseases that happen in our bodies that we're not wanting. It's inflammation. So, why would I want to inflame my body through exercise if I'm trying to not inflame my body for those different disease precursors? Well, in the end, what inflammation does is it lowers and reduces that chronic low grade inflammation that many diseases are linked to, like cancer and Alzheimer's disease. So, what it does is it fights the bad inflammation, if you will. So, there's lots of, and I hate to say good and bad, the inflammation that causes many of those different disorders that we have seen over the course of the last 20 years, exercise will help. So, as we are working to inflame our muscles to work them, the opposite is actually happening, and it is creating this position of reduced inflammation. Like I said, building muscle and strength, you got it. We all know that. Building bone density, we all know that too. That's been a really big buzz situation that's happened over the past years. When you talk about what happens when you exercise, especially women in postmenopausal years. We want to increase that bone density. And I don't want to leave the men out either. Guys, you increase that bone density. That helps with anything. So if you have a fall as you're aging, the likelihood of breaking something as you age becomes increasingly higher. So the big thing is weight bearing activities, whether that's body weight squats, whether that is easy overhead extensions and overhead presses, to be able to mimic the things that you do in regular life, like reaching into the cabinet behind me with your arm to get that coffee cup up. Or look, I said coffee. Yeah. Coffee doesn't help fight inflammation, but it's a good thing to have. We all have our vices, right? Okay. But what I'm talking about is that body weight exercise. So what it does is helps to promote that bone density, keeping us strong so that if we were to have a fall, that we are not as predisposed to hurting ourselves and breaking something as easily, keeping the bones happy, healthy, and dense. Also, we talked about it, sleep quality, big deal, boosting overall energy, weight and appetite regulation, burning calories, and regulating the appetite hormones. I think that's an interesting one too. The satiety hormone helps in reducing overeating. I know for me, when I when I exercise, a lot of times it chooses, my mind chooses a different kind of um, dietary intake, because I think, wow, I did something so important and I took care of myself on this level. My body craves something to replace that caloric deficit that I created in my exercise, that is going to supplement me and make me feel just as good as when I was done exercising. So, lots of positives, lots of positives. It's a flex, kids. There you go. On my soapbox as a former trainer and everything that goes along with it. You deserve to be healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. There's so many different things that physical exercise can do for you. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but I'm going to challenge you to pick a 7-day time frame and write it on your calendar if you need to. Put it on a sticky note, write it on your bathroom mirror with a dry erase marker. Call a friend and say, let's do a 7-day challenge. We're going to do movement every day for 7 days. We're going to be present in our bodies when we do it. We're going to carve out that time for us and say, we deserve it. And we're going to see how we feel at the end of the week. We're going to see how we feel probably, I'm going to just gander here, at the end of a couple of days, you're probably going to feel a whole lot better. Yeah. And let that be the catalyst to keep going, because guys, you deserve to be happy, to be healthy. Sometimes it takes a little extra elbow work and a little extra elbow grease, but it's worth it. It is totally worth it. I'm here to tell you. Definitely. Yeah. So until next week's challenge and next week's opportunity to grow in our soul goals and in who we are on every level, I want to let you know that everyone has a story and every story matters. I would love to see you make your story count.